Hi, my name is Emily Pfister, and this is my documentary project for literacy development on the topic of critical literacy. I chose to do my project on critical literacy because we have covered it in class, and when we learned about it, I felt like it had a very powerful message that has the potential to change a student's way of thinking in life in general, not just in English class and about literature, but their whole outlook of life is influenced by this critical literacy and thinking critically about topics in the world. So before I go into what critical literacy is, I think it's important to define what critical literacy isn't, just so we get some comparison and a better idea of what it is. So I pulled this quote from the McLaughlin and DeVoe article we read for week 9 about critical literacy. It says, when we were in school, we believed everything we read. We never questioned who was writing the text, who was determining what topics would be included, or who was deciding what would be excluded. We never questioned if there was any other perspective other than the one presented in our daily newspaper, on the evening news, or in our textbooks. And I think this quote does a very good job of summarizing currently how we teach students in public school. We oftentimes simplify things, oversimplify things, water things down, show them one perspective on a topic, and quickly move on to the next one. Everything is brief, and we give them one way of doing something. What are we doing to students? How is this affecting them? So I believe that we're creating rigid learners who are very narrow-minded, who see things as black or white. There is no gray because there's only one answer, is the message we're sending to them. This is not the message I think we should be sending. I think we need to create active learners who feel empowered to change things in the real world and who see that things are more complex and integrated, and there are multiple ways of solving problems. And these are kids who are going to grow up to be active citizens, and active citizens are what we need in this country right now. So now that we've defined what critical literacy isn't, let's talk about what it is. So critical literacy is a pedagogical style that questions the social construction of the self. So it's getting to this idea that we don't grow up in bubbles. We don't grow up on an island, so to say. We are constantly influenced by our neighborhood, our family, our local culture, the broader global culture, everything that surrounds us in life. The time we're living in, the location we're living in, the quality of the relationships, the family around us, the friends around us, and the feelings we have every day. Like, do I feel safe at school? Do I feel safe at home? Do I feel loved? Do I feel good about myself? Right? So all of these values and feelings and all of this is building who we are, and it's building who kids will grow up to be. So on a daily basis, we encounter media, popular culture, visual culture, in addition to literature and language. Everywhere we go, we walk down the street, we see signs, advertisements, we see videos on billboards and pictures and magazines. Everything we see and hear and do affects who we are. And these connections we make outside of school, we bring them into the classroom, and they shape our ideas as we're reading and being active in literature. So just for a second, think about your own life and where you grew up, your upbringing, your friends, your social, emotional relationships, all of that. And think, how has it affected you? Maybe if I didn't do this, or I hadn't gone to that school, or I hadn't met that person, I would be a different human being. And it's very true. We are a product of our environment and everything in it. So in this slide, I just included a bunch of pictures that kind of represent this idea. So you would have a totally different upbringing if you lived in a rural country town with a population of 300, opposed to living in a big city like New York. And your interests affect you too. If you're a super Star Wars fan, that has influenced you over the years. The books you read, the videos you watch, the TV shows, the movies, the songs you listen to, the slang words that your friends are using. All of this affects you. The people you grew up with and the family that you have, if you're living in a democratic state, if you're living in a Republican state, and if you're living in a country that's in turmoil or in war, all of this is going to have an effect on you, and you're going to bring all of this with you into literature class when you're reading and interpreting a book. So according to McLaughlin and DeVoogd, there are 4 key principles of critical literacy. The first focuses on issues of power and promotes reflection, transformation, and action. So we want kids to feel empowered to make a change. We want kids to reflect on what they're reading and take action in their real lives. So critical literacy focuses on the problem and its complexity. As I said before, a lot of times in schools we want to water things down for kids because we don't think they can handle the truth or they might not understand a complex problem. But kids are really able to understand things, and you can give them the complex version. It may take them a little bit more time and more scaffolding on your part for them to truly understand it, but that's so much better than giving them a watered down version. So techniques that promote critical literacy are dynamic and adapt to the context in which they are used. We want these techniques and skills that we're teaching them to be able to cross content areas, and we want kids to be able to think about other things outside of literacy with a critical stance, with a critical eye, thinking who is the audience, who is this written for, what is this meant to do, what is the purpose. So we want all of that to be able to be disseminated into other parts of their lives. The fourth principle is we want kids to examine multiple perspectives, which is a very important aspect of critical literacy that I am going to discuss in this slide. So providing multiple perspectives for kids does a number of things. It shows them different points of view, ranges of viewpoints on a subject, and it shows them that there's more than one answer to a question. That everyone has a different idea of something and that everyone's entitled to that different idea. We also want kids to analyze and evaluate information. We want them to think about what perspective a source is written in. Who created this? What is the purpose? What is the message? Who is the audience? What are they trying to tell me? This can be done through pictures, literature, videos, supplemental materials, old magazines, newspapers. Anything that shows them multiple points of view on a topic is great and should be given to children. We want them to be able to talk and think about text just as easily as they do about a video or still images or anything like that. Critical thinking is a huge part of critical literacy. Obviously, it's in the topic name, but what is the message they're trying to send? We want kids to get good at trying to pinpoint what the message is, because then they'll be able to take on the next step, which is authorship and the naming process, where they decide, what message am I sending to the world? When they critically think about their world, they critically think about what they see walking down the street every day, how they view themselves, where they fit into this world, what message do they want to send, who do they want to become, which is all very important. Through critical literacy, students learn to be active participants and to see themselves in a bigger picture, in a bigger context. They are able to define themselves in positive, critical, and active ways, which helps them become active citizens in the future who are empowered to make change, who feel they can make change, who critically analyze the world around them, what they see, why this is, what can be done, how can we make it change, who also are good at recognizing stereotypes. Recognizing a stereotype is the first step to breaking down a stereotype. When you realize that a stereotype is a stereotype, and then you learn more about the actual facts, you realize that a stereotype has no validity, and it doesn't have any power at that point because you've debunked it, so to say. We want kids who are able to do that, who don't just believe everything they hear and believe it's true. We want kids to question if it's true. Do I believe it's true? Is it okay that I believe it's true and you don't believe it's true? Is that all right? And through critical literacy, they learn that everyone is entitled to their own perspective, and that's a huge part of it. We want kids who are open-minded, strategic learners who are capable of viewing text from a critical perspective. So how do we do this? This seems like a very grand task. How do we actually implement critical literacy in the classroom? To begin doing this, the teacher must have um, a personal understanding of critical literacy and have an active critical stance on life and use critical literacy in the classroom, model it, and repeatedly talk about looking at things critically in order to start teaching this to students. So it's great for a teacher to provide access to a variety of texts that represent critical literacy. And one of the methods mentioned in the article was using a 5-step framework of explaining, demonstrating, guiding, practicing, and reflecting in order for kids to pick up on this critical stance. The video we watched in week 9 was a great example with the teacher who did the unit on Native American, African American, and, oh, I forget the other one. Native American, African American, and Latino representations and misrepresentations in the world, and had her students self-represent at the end. That was a great example of how you could do a unit on this. She used double journal entries, graphic organizers, discussion, and hands-on projects to really promote critical literacy in her classroom. So a double journal entry is a great way for kids to make text to self connections, text to text connections, by first writing a part of the story or a quote of the text or the video or the picture they see down, and then making a connection to it in the next category. A graphic organizer is another great way for kids to make connections because they're able to see how things can be independent and also interconnected at the same time with the different overlapping layers of a Venn diagram. Discussions are another great way for kids to voice opinions, think about things critically, see another person's point of view, be able to talk about it. This can be done in a whole class setting, small group, or partner setting, and each one has its pros and cons. But discussion is a great way for kids to interact ideas and to learn from each other. Hands-on projects are another way for kids to connect the learning to the real world, and definitely a big part of critical literacy. So I also wanted to include just a brief slide on connection to the Common Core state standards because the standards are such a big part of education at the moment. We want to make sure that by teaching critical literacy, we are covering all of our bases and making sure we're covering the things in the standards that need to be covered. So the first standard I chose, they're all from 5th grade, is talking about analyzing multiple accounts on the same event to note the similarities and differences. And that's exactly a critical literacy goal. We want kids to be able to do this. So by teaching critical literacy, we're also covering this standard. We want kids to see the relationship between 2 or more individuals, events, or ideas, which is another part of critical literacy. Like I said in the Venn diagram, we want them to be able to relate 2 things to each other, see the similarities, how they're different and similar. We also want kids to draw on information from multiple print or digital sources. So that's another part of critical literacy. We want to provide kids with multiple sources, multiple accounts, multiple stories that show them there's different points of view out there and it's okay to have a different point of view. And we also want kids to integrate information from several texts on the same topic to be able to speak or write about it knowledgeably, and that's basically the goal of critical literacy too. We want to create students who are able to synthesize information, pull out the main idea, and relate that main idea in some way to the main idea of another text or of an unrelated topic. We want them to be making these connections in school and hopefully carry it over into their real lives. So that was my presentation. I included a brief work cited on the video, the article from class, and the standards. And I hoped that my presentation has given the viewers just a nice overview of critical literacy, what it is, why it's important, and how it could be implemented in the classroom. So thank you very much.